Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pearce. Ukraine War News Update, first part for the 27th of July 2024. Let's start where we normally start. Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. You can find the caveats in the description to this video below. 1,210 personnel, that's an uptick for today. Yep, just checking it's the 27th. 11 tanks is a tick above average. 24 armoured personnel vehicles likewise, and 45 artillery systems is well over double the average. So fairly good statistics right across there. Remember, these are human beings, of course, but they are human beings invading another country. So all those philosophical arguments aside, that is a pretty good day of loss statistics for the Ukrainians. And I think it also shows that the Russians are definitely pushing in as many sectors as they can, particularly the east. Pokrovsk is somewhere where they are having some fairly decent success, but it depends how you measure decent. You know, decent because they're taking some ground, but not so decent because they're losing inordinate amounts of people and equipment. One anti-aircraft warfare system, 86 vehicles and fuel tanks. We'll come to a sort of video that indicates, that kind of represents how terrible the situation is for Russian vehicles, logistics and whatnot in a while. 3 pieces of special equipment. So I think that's a fairly challenging day. We don't have an Andrew Perpetual loss list. One might come out soon. Russia, though, Andrew says, is resorting to massed infantry attacks, moving up literally hundreds of infantry at a time. Imagine if Ukraine had 5 to 6 million mortar rounds that it needs. The infantry would get shredded. The fact that NATO has no realistic capability to produce 10 million mortar rounds per year is pretty embarrassing. Mortars are the backbone of the infantry, and 10 million rounds is actually very little ammo. If you have 1,500 mortars and fire 20 rounds per day, that is 11 million rounds. Everyone gets so focused on artillery and ignores mortars. This is his bugbear, something he's talked about an awful lot. If you see those mortar crews, how quickly you put a mortar down. I mean, they're firing constantly, you know, really rapidly when you are using them. So, you know, even at what the stats he said, even at 20 rounds per day, I mean, you fired 20 rounds in a minute. The mortar rounds should be 10 a penny, and you need just vast numbers of them produced in order to operate infantry at a significant level. So anyway, the idea here is that Russia have gone back to using really heavily infantry-led attacks, and that could be due to the loss of equipment. Who knows? Now, Kiev Independent reports that Russia's losses in Ukraine are so high that the Kremlin is having quite serious problems. Ukraine's military intelligence spokesperson said the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces confirmed that Ukraine hit Russia's Saki airfield that we heard yesterday. But the general point here is that Ukrainian top brass are saying that actually the losses are becoming a serious problem for Russia. You've just heard a State Duma representative say they should prioritize sending foreigners to the front line. I mean, is that going to be Steven Seagal, Gérard Depardieu? Like, you know, what do you mean by that? But that would indicate that things are, I think, a lot more desperate behind the scenes than they're leading us to believe. Footage of a destroyed Pantsir S-1 air defense system, destroyed in the Kherson region yesterday. Russia's losing lots of their air defense systems lately. This is another S-1. We've seen a number of air defense systems taken out recently, Buks and Pantsirs. It is arguably a systematic approach by Ukraine ahead of the F-16s coming into play. However, I think this has been an ongoing systematic approach since May last year, when they realised they couldn't really mount attacks without getting rid of artillery, air defence systems, and doing something about the mines. So the mines slow you down, and then you get hit by artillery, helicopters, ATGMs, and so on and so forth. So you need to prepare. In order to prepare for any kind of offensive, you need to thoroughly degrade the opposition and be able to bring your aircraft into close air support. And you're not going to do that if they've got active air defense systems still operational. Right. The attritional death of Russian motor transport proceeds apace, says Trentselenko. And he's referring to this video that's just come out, just showing you, giving you an indication of the sheer volume of vehicle losses. So when we see on a daily basis sort of 80, 70, 50, 60, 50, 70, 80, 103 the other day, wasn't it, or 102 vehicles and fuel tanks lost, this is what really you're seeing. Here's just someone driving down the road. There's a Bukanka, a loaf van, a Scooby-Doo van, and trucks just drive down one road, and you're just consistently seeing all of these vehicles just broken and destroyed and abandoned at the side of the road as they've been hit by FPV drones. And it's really difficult to be any vehicle driving out in the open these days on either side, right? And this will be similar for the Ukrainians, but I just think with the amount of FPV drones that the Ukrainians are able to use, this is a real problem. Now, there have been some claims about FPV drone usage. I've seen a couple of people report that the Russians are outproducing the Ukrainians in terms of FPV drones. I'm not sure that's true. I don't think the statistics bear this out. I need to speak to Daniela again, see where the stats are from what Tochny have generated, and Andrew Perpetual and his team. But I would be amazed if Russia has actually been able to out manufacture and out procure those smaller drones compared to Ukraine, given the number of countries and drone coalitions and United 24's fundraising and their own expenditure and the manufacture of drones on small levels, from like randos in Ukrainian apartment blocks to these charities like Wild Hornets, or non-profits like Wild Hornets, that are just making an absolute ton of these things, and they are getting huge numbers of drones. I just don't think it's true that the Russians can be outproducing them. But there is another report that the Ukrainians, or I heard this in Ukraine, the latest podcast the other day, that the Ukrainians are suffering a little bit from their electronic warfare that is actually doing sort of fratricide on their own drones. I don't know if I've got something on that here. Yeah, this might be as a result of this. So Euromaidan Press says Ukrainian electronic warfare units thwart nearly 8,000 Russian drone missions in a week. The report underscores the growing strength of Ukrainian electronic warfare. At the same time, it showcases the scale of Russian drone use, reaching 1,000 drones daily. So, having just said what I said, the Russians are clearly upping their drone usage themselves, as you would expect them to be reacting to the war by trying to make as many drones as physically possible. So it's not like they've got no drones. But I just think the potential for Ukraine is much higher than that for Russia. A lot of Russia's, I wonder if a lot of their capacity will depend on the provision of drones from China, whether anything's happening on the sly there. But going back to this electronic warfare usage, apparently they are bringing down a lot of their own drones, the Ukrainians. And we've heard this from Russians before. It's just really difficult when you've got so many frequencies, so many drones, and it's just, the skies are black with drones type thing. Then it's going to be very difficult to be able to isolate the enemy's drones when you're all using each other's frequencies and all sorts of stuff is going on. So it wouldn't surprise me if in taking down 8,000 Russian drones missions a week, you're taking down, 2,000 of your own drone missions a week, or whatever it may be. So that is the collateral you're going to get with electronic warfare for sure. Now, the first time I've seen this, says someone, perch and stare, an FPV waiting for a target to open up. We'll see a lot more advanced and possibly automated versions of this in the coming months. This is pretty, I guess, pretty scary, to be perfectly honest. So what you have here is a drone. What's on this screen, that hatch is a tank or an IFV hatch, right? And you have a drone that has flown around. Obviously, I would assume, I'm speculating here, but guys have heard a drone fly around and they've just battened down the hatches and got in their tank and thought, right, I'm safe. And then waited for a bunch of time until they can't hear the drone anymore. And then pokes his head out of the hatch there, as you can see. But the drone is just looking directly at him. It's not got its propellers going round. It's just sat there. But the person, and it cuts because the person operating the drone is able to remotely detonate the explosive. So now you're having a lot of drones that don't get triggered by impact. So often you have like a wire and a circle like that, and as soon as the impact happens, it kind of connects, it completes a circuit via that way, or other different triggers, or just the RPG itself just being slammed into kinetically into a target, whatever. But now you're getting explosives that you can remotely detonate with the press of a button. So you can land it on a tank, wait for someone to poke their head up, and then bang, which gives another capability for, in this case, the Ukrainians with their drone usage. Now we're going to go to, I presume this is a Russian assassination of one of their own. In Russia, former Minister of Natural Resources, head of the West Ural Department of Rostekhnadzor, Konstantin Cheremyshkin, has died near the Yekaterinburg bar fjord. So apparently he was in the bar with his sons, felt ill, went outside, sat on a bench and died, which is not a normal thing. I mean, he could have had a heart attack, fair enough, or you could have been poisoned and gone out and then like, I don't feel very well, bosh, you're dead. Or not, whatever. It could be a natural death. But we have seen a number of people both arrested and dying suddenly. We've seen people fall out windows. I would love to see the statistics of how many people in public positions have died suddenly over the last 2.5 years, and compare that to another country of similar demographics, and see how anomalous the Russian statistics are, and wonder whether your life expectancy is somewhat lowered if you take on a public sector role in Russia. Getting on the wrong side of the Kremlin leads to a rather shortened lifespan. A real mixed bag of stuff shot down by Ukraine overnight, says Tim White. 1 KH-59 guided missile, 4 killer Shahed drones, 1 four-post attack or recon drone, 4 supercams, other drones as well, 2 Lancets, and 1 unknown type of drone. So a lot of different stuff being used overnight. I don't know what the success rate was at all. I'm sorry, I can't give you much more detailed information on that, but I haven't heard of anywhere in Ukraine particularly in trouble. There's been a few fires in Kiev where they might well have come down. I think there's a grass fire in the Kiev region where I think a drone has been brought down and then catches fire. That's a problem with this time of year, is that everything is tinder dry. So Russia claims Ukraine has attacked the Bryansk region with 21 drones. So that's, if you think of Belgorod coming down into Kharkiv, and you got Belgorod, Kursk and Bryansk up in that northern area. Russian air defense units intercepted 21 drones late last night over the southern border of the Bryansk region, according to the Russian MOD. So if you're thinking 21 drones across there, Russians are obviously going to claim they've shot them all down. You can assume that some got through. Now, the big news today is Ukrainian drones attacked Ryazan, reportedly targeting an oil refinery and a Diaghilevo military airfield. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense claimed that they intercepted all the drones. There are images of drones getting through. There's smoke in the distance. We don't know if what has been damaged, if anything. But we'll keep our eyes peeled. Fighter Bomber, who is the Russian Telegram channel that's pretty reliable, says that Ukrainian drones attacked the Diaghilevo airbase in Ryazan, where 222 M3 bombers are based. Ukrainian Bober long-range strike drone was seen. A drone was seen flying over the city. Fighter Bomber added air defenses reacted normally. So if he's not reporting that there were any losses, and maybe there weren't, I've often said that rather than send a single drone or a couple of drones against somewhere like that, you need to be sending 100 drones to overwhelm an airbase and then properly take out those bombers. It's just, I'd be working making sure you're getting as many people as possible to work on drone manufacture, and you are building these. It's like number one priority. We want to be able to send 100 of those Boba drones or Liuzhi drones or whatever drone it is, 100 drones at that one airfield, overcome the air defenses, and then take out whatever's there. Absolute necessity. I talked about the strike on Novostopova, Crimea, about an S-300 possibly being taken out, and one source yesterday was saying actually the tails, the transporter erector launchers, weren't taken out. And then you got Max 24 saying, but I don't know if there's any provenance in these claims, but he says the S-300V air defense battery was hit on July the 21st. He says Cyber Boroshno is his source. The 2 radars, INBIR radars, 2 S-300V radars, 4 S-300 launchers, and 2 S-300V launchers. ATACMS destroyed a repair shop where air defences were serviced. Now, I don't know, because I've seen various claims about the air defences not being here, and now we hear, here's a satellite image, but I don't know the details of this satellite image to know if that is before or is that after, and are they damaged? So I don't know. I haven't looked into the sources. Sorry, just time reasons. I haven't double checked this, but it's quite incredible that they've got all of those tails right next to each other, and I don't know whether that's because it's a repair shop or that's just how they've arranged those air defense units, but it would be incredible. That's the sort of place you'd want to absolutely pepper with ATACMS, that's for sure. Right, Romania. So if you remember, there were claims that 3 drones fell inside Romanian were in Romanian airspace and fell on Romania 2 nights ago. It's probably 3 nights ago now. Then 2 nights ago, there were claims that Romania had shot down some of the Russian drones. And then Romania's now come out and denied downing Russian drones over Ukraine. Videos that purport to show Romanian air defense units shooting down Russian attack drones above Ukraine are spreading a false narrative, according to Romania's Ministry of Defense. And to add to that, the Prime Minister of Romania has explained why they cannot shoot down Shaheeds over Ukraine. Quote, in order to shoot down Russian drones, we must open fire on Ukrainian territory. I think it has not been allowed yet. I've not heard of any decision on this matter, according to their Prime Minister. But I would also say that if they are doing something like that, they're going to be denying it. So I don't know that we're any the wiser as to whether Romania has shot down any Russian drones over Ukrainian airspace or even like over their own airspace. Who knows? I would like to think they are like taking out some, and they've got good justification for that, because those drones are falling on Romania. And when only a river separates the 2 countries and the other side of the river is the port that's being targeted, you can imagine there are a number of drones that might overshoot and land in Romania. So I would have absolutely no problem as a Romanian MOD saying, yeah, we're going to shoot down stuff that's around this river area. And that might be shooting things down just inside the Ukrainian border. But I would say that's pretty well justified. So I imagine it might well, I'm not going to say probably, but I imagine it might well be happening. It's not only feasible, it's plausible. Is it probable? I don't know. Anyway, Zelensky, so moving on to other bits and pieces, Zelensky highlights the critical situation in the Pokrovsk sector of the front, orders the Ukrainians to strengthen defences there. We are waiting for them to cede enough territory until they get to the main fortifications, but it is slightly worrying around Pokrovsk, that's for sure. Recently, Russians have been advancing by small portions of land nearly daily in that sector. I wouldn't say nearly daily, I would say daily. So Zelensky's obviously showing that he's a little bit worried about that sector. Tatarigami has got a small thread here on Russia relocating valuable military assets deeper into its territory. Frontelligence Insight has conducted research and released a special report for subscribers detailing how the Russian army has moved further critical assets, including bomber jets and helicopters. We're going to just pop into a little summary from Twitter that they put here. Based on a comprehensive geospatial analysis of thousands of square kilometres, our team has concluded that between the second half of June and mid-July, Russian forces relocated many valuable assets away from the Ukrainian border. This includes valuable assets such as jets, attack helicopters, and their associated logistics. This is likely a preemptive measure designed to mitigate potential ATACMS strikes or other Western long-range weaponry. While it may have some short-term drawbacks, the Su-34, Su-35 jets travel fast enough, thus adding 100 to 200 kilometres to the front line, and it's unlikely to significantly affect their operations. Since they primarily launch bombs at static targets, this change is unlikely to make a difference. And this is a shame. So the Western restrictions have given Russia enough time to adapt to potential Ukrainian strikes on them, that when the permission is given, they've already adapted and that you can't affect any change. So that's really frustrating. Right, that ferry that was shot at, that was targeted the other night, the railway ferry at Kavkaz. There's a little thread here that's worth reading. Important context about the Slavyanin ferry that was significantly damaged in the recent Ukrainian attack on the port Kavkaz. Navy Speaker Platenchuk said there were direct hits on a ferry, which is a rail ferry and quite powerful. It's the last one that Russia possesses. Okay, says Georgy Revishvili. Regarding the project, it was designed to accommodate 50 conventional ferries, meaning it can transport 50 tanks. It has now been removed from the international route. The situation was so critical that after the loss of previous two ferries, the Russians were forced to remove it from the international route and put it on an internal one. More precisely, in order to connect the railway of the Russian Federation with the Crimean one, with Crimea, with our occupied railway. As a result, it played a crucial role in military logistics, handing over 3/4 of the supplies. 3/4 of the supplies. This is phenomenally important. The ferry was a crucial component of the occupiers' military logistics. It supported their forces in occupied Crimea and the southern part of Ukraine. Now they will have to find a way to address the disruption to this chain. The destruction of the ferry was not accidental. After this loss, they realized the seriousness of the situation. The Ukrainian Navy's military commander has previously stated that Ukraine has effective fire control over the Sea of Azov, but the Russians did not believe it. However, this attack has made them realize that it is indeed true. After the defeat of the Slavyanin ferry, the Sea of Azov is completely cleared of Russian warships. As he noted that a similar situation occurred after the defeat of the ship Askold, when the Russians withdrew their main vessels. So this is really significant, really very significant, this. Don't underestimate the ramifications there. Now, Putin's state media has turned to attacking military heads who, with Putin, enjoy benefits that come from a license to steal, may show that Putin's desperation in the face of a collapsing economy. So TASS report what is known about the arrest of former Deputy Defence Minister Dmitry Bulgakov. So you've had these arrests. Shoigu got moved sideways, other people getting arrested, Borisov coming in to take over. As Tim Hogan says, if limited to few sacrificial generals to put fear in the military command, then Putin may avoid a backlash. But if the command thinks a purge is coming, they may seek to run or even turn on Putin. Trump's decline appears to be impacting Putin and the elite, watching this closely. So Tim Hogan making a few very quick observations there. Watch what goes on with these purges. And if they become too big, you might get a serious backlash and Putin could be in trouble. But also, and this is true, the propagandists are really starting to get a bit worried about the situation with Trump and possible election of Kamala Harris, and they're starting to panic. And so that may affect how things operate in Russia, because if they're pinning their hopes on a Trump election, then that's part of their military strategy. Honestly, it's all connected. And you're saying, right, we can't beat them on the battlefield, so what we need to do is undermine their politics so that they stop getting support from their international allies, particularly the US. And if that is what we're absolutely banking on, if that is now looking like it's not going to happen, then that will potentially affect decision making on the battlefield, the decision making regarding Ukraine as a whole. It's really, really important. connecting all these dots. Now, to connect further dots, as predicted, says Tim Wright, Russia's bank has hiked its interest rates another 2% to a massive 18%. As shown in the graph, Moscow took emergency action in February 2022 to control spending. Everything was according to plan, but not now. Laughably, they predict 7% by December. So it's spiraling interest rates there. You've got other issues as well. Intel, using some Russian sources here, says the head of Russian central bank claims that the country's labour and industrial resources are virtually exhausted. And this is what they say. The head of central bank, Elvira Nebulina, says that the reserves of labour and production capacity in the country are virtually exhausted. Central bank expects that against a backdrop of high deposit rates, Russians will begin to save more. Interest rates have gone up, but of course that means they're not going to spend more, which means, you're not going to take out loans, which means you're going to, it's all looking pretty dodgy for the Russian economy. A dam has broke in the Klamlinskaya water reservoir in the Russian Chelyabinsk region due to prolonged rains. Residents of several villages in the flood zone were told to be ready to evacuate. The local administration has said. Now, I've seen a video of this. It's quite incredible. So our dam's broken. I mean, that's another dam. How many dams are broken over the last however many months? It's incredible. So Russia really seems to be creaking under the pressure of war, with a lack of investment in any kind of infrastructure right throughout the country. And that then goes, it's such a massive country, right? You can have issues with too much rain and floods over here and forest fires over there. So when Russia mobilized all of its fighting-age male firefighters for the Russia-Ukrainian war, there were bad consequences. I talked previously, I've said many times that it's not just the firefighters being mobilized, it's actually that the conscripted soldiers usually act as firefighters in the summer season, right? And now that hasn't happened for like 2.5 years. So when these wildfires start, there's really no one there to do anything about it, or not enough people. So in Russia, quote, in Russia, 5.9 million hectares of forest burned from January the 1st to July the 24th this year, which is more than the territory of Croatia. So an area bigger than Croatia has burned in Russia this year. There's also a critical shortage of forest protection employees, partly due to low pay. So the other thing is, when they're offering, and I need to tell you the rates they're now offering for soldiers. So the other thing is, they're not only trying to get foreigners, first and foremost, but what they're offering people to be paid to join the army is insane at the moment. And you can imagine why people might say, yeah, okay, because actually it's really, really good rates, and they're having to do that because they desperately need people, and people pretty much have got a good indication they might die if they join up. So you need to make it that attractive, and that of course means that people are going to come from these other lower paid, like emergency services roles, to join the army, and then that means that emergency services don't have the personnel. So it's a real issue, and then you're looking back at here and saying, right, production capacity in the country are virtually exhausted because we don't have any reserves of labour. And then you have the wage inflation spiral, and then you get, trying to counter the wage inflation spiral, you then get massive interest rates to stop people spending money. But actually, like, it's kind of a weird thing that's causing that wage increase. It's not due to everyone having loads of money. It's because you're trying to get public sectors trying to attract people to do really important jobs, and you've got a lack of people because you killed them all. And so this is not a healthy economy. Anyway, I think it's in trouble. And I'm going to leave you with this, which is some happy story here of a dog and its puppy being rescued from I will turn the music somewhat down, from a house that was shelled.
Let's go.
Bit of Game of Thrones acoustic.
Together, yes. Can you? It's video. Need photo, yeah? Not one? Maybe. Yes. Maybe. Yes.
I saw another dog yesterday that had actually been injured and lost an eye. They had operated on it from shelling, and it was found just sort of half injured and everything. And just, it's, look how scared that dog is. The sound of shelling, just awful, isn't it? And then they sort of get back to being I hope get back to being somewhere near normal. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and share. Really appreciate your support. Take care, everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. I'm just off to a football match, my kids' football match, so output might be a little bit delayed today. Toodle pips.